Hey guys, thanks for checking out my post-game video for the recent Steel Phalanx game that I did a battle report for. If you notice a change of wardrobe, that is because there was some drinking that went on between recording that video and this one. So it's a new day, and that means a new outfit slightly. But in any case, again, I wanted to go over the game and kind of break down what happened. I feel like this game where I played against Steel Phalanx is very similar to the last video I put up where I played against Nomads, where the game just took a turn on turn 1 and 2 that really created a one-sided experience or a one-sided outcome, whatever you want to call it. The Nomad one I was a little bit more confused by, but going through and kind of processing that video or that battle report made it a little bit easier to do this one, and I noticed some similarities with that. So as usual, I'm just going to kind of riff and go along and just kind of see what we can find out from the game here. So let's get into that. So I'm deploying here. So as I talked about in the the main video, excuse me, I certainly made some mistakes during deployment. So if we're looking at this, my goal is to bunker everything up and then be able to keep my lieutenant very safe and keep my designated target very safe by arrow and all that kind of stuff. So, excuse me, there's just something in my throat that I cannot get out. So to that end, I wanted to have a couple models going down this lane. So we have this guy pretending to be a Keltar specialist, or just a Keltar in the game. So he's got Flash Pulse, which is going to be good for anybody trying to approach down this angle. And then this is going to be a Kamel Forward Observer, going to be very much the same. So, the goal is not really to kill anything that comes around the corner. And in general, I think that's not a good goal to go for in this mission, because your opponent's data tracker is likely going to be something that is either very maneuverable or very durable, because they either need to get to the designated target quickly and safely, or they need to be able to just wade through, some amount of offense and things like that to get there as well. So flash pulses are really good for that, because all you have to do is get one through, and then the guy's blind. So from that point, not many models are particularly good at dealing with the designated target. The best they can really do is either put themselves in line of fire to shoot it next turn, or go into base to base so that they can try to CC it or something. But there's a lot of easy counters for all of that stuff. So as long as you can get a blind off, that's usually enough to keep the designated target alive. What I messed up on is certainly this model, and then probably these two models. Just being a little bit too far out of the bunker. So these two guys should probably be like here or something. And that's going to have me pull the Gal rail a little bit back, because they need to obviously stay within 8 inches of each other. But that's not really that big of a deal. I have a 24-inch maximum fighting band with the Spitfire, so it's not like I have to do a ton of moving to get to what I want to see or anything like that. And then these two guys just should have slid over, to like here or something like that. That way, everybody is very protected. And on my first turn, it's going to be very unlikely that Steel Phalanx has any ARO opportunities that I'm not actually giving them. So, nothing that besides me moving out and intentionally seeing stuff. And then what I can do is just give an order to each triad. So, I can give an order to the Galrail Sniper triad, and then as part of that, the Keltar could move over to this position, give an order to the Kamel triad. As part of that, can move over to this position. And that way I can do all that stuff on my own time instead of starting them there, and that resulted in a few of my models getting killed. So just an oversight by me that I will correct as I'm still working on this deployment strategy for decapitation and all that kind of good stuff. So just something I needed to make note of there. Similarly, a little bit too exposed with the Corral and friend here. So not crazy exposed, but I should have been a little bit more vigilant in checking sight lines and things like that from the building that could have been across there. And then in actuality, probably should have put these guys like back here prone, because they can crawl 3, which is going to be pretty good, or along this building or something like that. Now, again, some of these deployments wouldn't work as well if I was going second, but I was going first. So really just needed to, keep everything pretty tight and safe, and then I can break out from there. If I was going second, I probably would have deployed even more defensively. So I really needed to deploy as if I was going second, even though I was going first. And that's something that I generally do, just because, especially with Towhogs, they have so many fire teams, you don't want the main guy that you're acting with to be able, or to, as part of doing whatever he's trying to do, give your opponent an arrow on one of the other triad members who is just going to stand there and get shot or something like that. So definitely some mistakes in deployment there for me that ended up losing me a couple models that I shouldn't have lost. Deployment over here is fine. The only thing I didn't like really is using this Quarry Sentinel up here. Generally, I'm probably not going to put stuff on roofs just because a lot of drop troops don't really want to go in there. While drop troops can have like a Spitfire or an HMG, other good guns, typically people go with the cheaper profiles. So like, some kind of shotgun, some kind of template weapon, something like that. And dropping those sorts of models on top of a building is not really what you want to be doing, because then they're going to have to use an entire order to, go down via a ladder or climb or whatever, and then, some more orders to get to wherever they want to go. So I probably could have put the quarry somewhere else just to cover another angle or something like that. And that's probably what I'll do in the future, is use the Chaxa and the quarry to cover the ground, and then use the Gaurel sniper to cover rooftops and stuff like that. And then, if I do run into a drop trooper that has, a bigger gun or something like that, that's fine. I have a doctor in the list for a reason. And then, worst case scenario, the Gaurel sniper goes down. Most likely he probably just goes prone or something like that after going Symbiont inactive, which is not, great, but it's going to cost my opponent some orders to do that and all that sort of stuff. So that's probably what we're going to do deployment wise in the future. So going over to Tim's side here, I don't really have too much of a problem with this deployment. Not really sure why the Evo bot is over here. Obviously the Flash Rem went here eventually, but if you're going to pay the points for an Evo bot, they're pretty expensive. But Tim's list is putting it to good use because he has 4 drop troops, so the +3 to the physical rolls without using an order is nice, especially because he might not bring them all in at once. So it's just always up and all that kind of stuff. Don't have to worry about the hacking program being changed around. But I would definitely try to place it so that it's within 8 inches of both of the flash remotes, just because that way it can hack for the Burst 2 and ARO. I forget what the program is called, but that's really good on flash remotes, makes them definitely a lot trickier to get through and that kind of thing. So I would have liked to probably see the Evo bot, the Flash Pulse bot that went here, and then the Flash Pulse bot that went in the middle goes somewhere where they can cover the designated target, because 2 flash remotes that are arrowing along the same angles and are also Burst 2 is pretty tricky to deal with for a lot of armies. You're really going to have like either smoke tricks or be able to use your own smoke to slice the pie or something like that to get through those, which can be a little order intensive. So I think that would have been good. Also, since the designated target was on my left-hand side where Alki and her team was, that included an engineer, that would put the remotes near the engineer as well, so they can fix them up and things like that. And I think that would have made it a little bit more, quite a bit easier to at least defend the designated target, because there really wasn't anything defending it, so it was pretty much a free kill. Other than that, everything else is set up okay. Good position for the Feuerbach, obviously, as he got some nice kills there. Decent position for the Shock Marksman rifle, just kind of arrowing on the approach and all that kind of stuff, although Could have probably checked the sight lines a little bit more, because I was able to slice the pie pretty easily on those two guys. Even if I didn't have access to smoke, that's not something you generally want to give your opponent. It's just, a really easy way to take your fire team one by one. And then I think Thrasymedes could have been a little bit more involved in the game. So, maybe like up here, or taking this position or something like that. He's pretty decent in a fight, has a good gun for the kind of mission that we're playing and the kind of ranges that I want to fight at. So having him involved earlier would have been a good idea, I think. So those are my nitpicks for that. Like I already said, this flash remote in the middle, I would have liked to see him maybe like on this building or something, where he can see the designated target and some of the approach angles a little bit more easier, and be closer to the engineer, which is one of these three guys. I don't remember which one. Similarly, I think the Thorakites were played a little bit too far back. Like, there's really no reason for this guy to be here. He could be, like up here or something like that. Just, keeping guys a little bit too far back, but that's a pretty minor thing there. Net rod's fine, all good. So designated target obviously is just kind of out in the middle to get killed pretty easily. I don't have like any measurements or anything like that for the table, so I don't know if there was an alternative place that Tim could have placed it, but not a good position to be in. And definitely he could have been a little bit more, I guess, exhaustive, thorough, whatever you want to call it, measuring the deployment zones and things like that, because if you are going in second, you really want to make sure that you have the side that you can hide your designated target in very well, and it ended up that I went first, and I also got that side, so that was a huge advantage to me. Final thing for deployment, don't like the placement of this flash remote. They should always have cover. There's really no reason to place it there without cover. It didn't have a particularly amazing sight line or anything like that, so just putting it at a marked disadvantage like that is not generally what you want to be doing, unless you get a ridiculous line of fire or something like that. There's very few reasons to ever put a model not in cover, especially in deployment. All right, so my first turn, moving around, lose some stuff to the Führerbach. That's all fun. Managed to kill a whole bunch of the fire team. That's cool. So this is a weird thing to me, where the way that I play Infinity is extremely defensive. I don't like arrowing, to be honest. I think arrowing is a trap a lot of the time. It does depend on the mission, but you're almost always at a huge disadvantage when you arrow, even though you get to try. The low burst, your opponent getting to pick the range band that you fight at, things like that are all just very detrimental. So usually I like to just forego arrows and hide everything and make my opponent just come to me, because a lot of the times armies cannot cross the table safely. So even if you're just doing pure moves, most models need like 3 to 4 orders to actually get across the table to start seeing stuff. And then if you're going to start picking fights after that, it's very difficult to get that model back to a safe position where your opponent's not going to kill it during their active turn. So that's generally my strategy, is just hide everything on turn 1. If my opponent wants to come to me, that's fantastic, because I'm going to make sure that I have multiple pieces in ARO on the approach angles and things like that. So now arrowing is a little bit more attractive. Or they can just, grab the mission and stuff like that. But I don't really care, because it always feels like grabbing things on the mission early don't matter that much. It matters who grabs them later, of course. And if you do a good job of keeping orders alive and target prioritization and things like that, it's never really been a big deal to grab consoles and things like that on turn 2 and 3 for me. I've never really had that much trouble. So until someone shows me a play style that really hard counters that, that's kind of where I'm at with Infinity, and I think that Tim could have benefited from some of that this game, because I was able to kill 2 flash remotes and 2 Thorakites just because they were out there, and none of these fights were even close to being in Tim's favor. The flash remotes, I'm 5 dice against 1, even though they dodged. So it's like they're going to be on 13s versus 12s, but I have 5 dice to 1, so I'm hugely advantaged. And then, taking out the Führerbach, I was able to put that on 0 band, so that's 2 shots on 9s versus 5 shots on 12s, huge advantage to me. Shock Marksman Rifle, same thing, 2 shots on 12s for that versus 5 shots on 12s, huge advantage to me. Like, it's just, none of these fights were even the scary for me or anything like that. Some of that is abusing smoke and MSV2, which is something that a lot of armies are very weak to. Usually most lists will only have 1 or 2 MSV2 guys, and you can just ignore them generally, especially with Toha, because Toha has eclipse smoke on top of regular smoke, so you can eclipse smoke a specific angle with a McCall to deny their MSV2 and then use your smoke to pick the fights that you want to pick. So that might be a Toha specific thing, but just brutally effective, and I've been really liking this list. So that's I was able to do a lot of damage on turn 1 because Tim didn't have anything hidden. Now let's say he had hidden everything. I'm probably just gonna get my defensive perimeter the way I want it to be, and then get his designated target killed pretty easily. So I think that maybe a viable strategy would have been to hide everything that's not going to defend the designated target, because that way I'm probably gonna be slowed down dealing with those flash remotes and things like that. And then maybe still get to the designated target. Maybe I don't. Just depends on dice and things like that. I'm still definitely advantaged in those fights. Even if the hacking program is up, flash remotes are going to be, dealing with smoke and things like that. So not necessarily a strategy that would work against my specific list, but a strategy that might work in general for Tim's side. So kill some stuff, that's all fun, get my defensive perimeter all built up. Okay, so now we're on Steel Phalanx turn 1, and this is where I think the game really falls apart for Tim, or at least starts to. So we bring this guy in like over here somewhere. I can't see because I'm like this. He spends another order like moving up into the crevice so that I can't see him just yet. That's fine. And then uses another order to walk into close combat and knife the McCall, but we both go unconscious. So an Ekdromo is with a chain rifle is 15, 20 points, something like that. I don't have Army Builder up right now, but certainly more than 10. So this is a good trade for me because I'm coming forward on points, or I'm ahead on points. We're both losing 1 regular order, but I have more orders to begin with, or at least the same amount of orders. I can't remember Tim's exact list, so that's pretty even as well. And then obviously I'm losing a model, but it's dying to do the thing that I deployed it, and it's largely in the list to do, which is to counter airborne deployment. So this is kind of not only playing into my hands, which is fine because, I'm making it really hard on my opponent to bring in drop troops effectively by having so many angles covered and things like that. But then he's also wasting orders, and that's something I talked about in the Nomads game that I put up, is these drop troops are coming in, and then they're not only taking, bad to even fights, but they are wasting a lot of orders to do it. So it's like, obviously you have to land out of line of fire so I don't get a free flamethrower, but then why not just walk wide and chain rifle me, that way you can get close enough to walk into melee next turn if I am to dodge. But if I don't dodge and I just shoot you back, Ekdromo are armor 2, I think, so they pass on 13s, so they have a 35% chance to pass arm against a flamethrower. I'm arm 0, so I have I think the same odds, or no, I need 14s, so I have a 30% chance of passing the train rifle. So if all you're doing is trying to trade, that's the best way to do it, because the odds are pretty good that we're both going to go down, and it saves you an order. But in the event that I dodge on, I think, 12s with the Chaxa. So if I dodge and I make it, or if I dodge and I don't make it but I pass the chain rifle save, it's not like they have kinematica or anything like that. So all you have to do is then just walk into melee with me next turn. But at least you're giving yourself the chance of preserving 1 order. So walking into CC is definitely the more safe option as far as getting this thing down, because either I'm going to try to dodge or fight back. Both of those are bad ideas because externals have martial arts, they have a good CC and all that kind of stuff. Or I'm much more likely going to flamethrower, which is what I did, and then you get to just knife me for free with a double action close combat weapon. Very good odds that I go down there, but it's more order intensive, and I think that's something that escapes people is balancing the amount of orders that you're expending doing something with how likely it is to work. So that's something that's hard to think about in the moment, but I think fell apart here a little bit. Over here, we have the exact same thing. So the Ectrodromo drops in, uses an order to walk to like here, just shy of being seen, and then walks into melee. So again, we're using 3 orders to get this done, to kill a 10-point model that all it's in the list for is a regular order, and then, you know, to be a speed bump to things like this. So even though in this instance, my model dies and the Ectrodromos lives, I'm okay with the 3 orders being expended to remove this, you know, just a little 10-point speed bump. That's exactly what he's there to do. So again, I kind of chalk that up as a win for me. So by now, it's turn 1 for Steel Phalanx. They've lost 4 orders during my turn. We've lost 2 Thorakites and 2 Flash Remotes. And then now we've just used 6 orders already to kill 2 Chaxa, which is 20 points. 20 points that I don't care about. So, and one of the Ectrodromo died in the process. So, like, I mean, does that seem like a good idea to anybody who's watching this list? Doesn't seem like a good idea to me. And that's where I think things started falling apart, is I was just watching Tim's order pool go lower and lower, and nothing is happening to me that I care about. So dropping here is an idea I liked more. It's a little more dangerous because you're in the thick of things and all that kind of stuff, but you're dropping an airborne deployment in a position where he can get a lot of work done. Now, to my part, this is a bad deployment on me, in that I should have had a model, you know, up here covering this line or something like that. Obviously, I have this Kael'tar, but he's only covering like here and this way, and then the Galrail is covering a little bit here, but mostly is watching like this. So I do have an opening there, so I should have deployed in a way that prevented that. A lot of the times when you play with a building, this block thing won't be here. It'll just be pretty open. So this Kael'tar would be able to cover, you know, the entire building. But that wasn't the case this time, and it was a mistake on my part to not recognize that and just put something up here that can shoot. You know, it could have just been this like this Kamel right here. This is just a regular Kamel, just a 12-point line trooper. He could have easily been up here. I don't really plan on using him in ARO or anything like that because he has a combi rifle. I'm more, you know, in on my flash pulse guy, and then the guy that was over here. So this guy could have easily been up here and then, you know, taken 2 shots at the Ectrodromi. I would be on 14s for range, and then it needs 12s to pass any hits that it gets, things like that. And then that also kind of shuts down any of you know, Tim's plans, because if you know, let's say the Ectrodromo survives and, you know, moves into melee or does a lean out or something like that, I'm gonna get another arrow. You know, I can take a change face here, depending on, not against Ectrodromo because they have martial arts, but, you know, usually. So that was just an oversight by me. So I liked this drop. I thought that one was more inventive, and probably should have started there, because as we were playing, Tim made it seem like he was dropping the first 2 Ectrodromo to clear a path or something like that. But then this one came in and didn't need any of those other models cleared. And if he had landed, which he did, and had remained alive, which he did not, then he could have done, you know, some damage, either by possibly doing some damage to the sniper or by doing a lean out chain rifle, which could have done some harm, stuff like that. So I think the first 2 Ectrodromo were largely wasted, while this one is more what should have been happening. It just turned out that a lucky pistol shot from a Chaxa was able to knock this guy down for me, so that was definitely something that was fortunate for my side, but I made a mistake by not covering myself as much as I should have, which, if you're going to deploy in a bunker fashion like I have, there's really no excuse for that. So that's definitely a poor play mark to me. And then we have the final Ectrodromo, who has the HMG, comes in. Now, by this point, a lot of the orders are kind of gone from the group that the HMG is in, because I've killed 2 of the models that were in its combat group, but it still has a good few models to play with, and it's an HMG, so it's definitely, scary. But because it landed and scattered, my McCall gets to see it. Now, this is not that big of a deal. I mean, it's kind of a big deal. So this is a weird game state. Obviously, what ended up happening is Thrasymedes gets 3 orders and eventually kills the McCall, which Tim was frustrated with during our game, and I thought was pretty lucky of me to survive that long. But then when I was looking at the numbers, I was actually favored because I'm 2 dice since I'm in a triad to smoke dodge on 16s. Versus 2 dice for the light rocket launcher on 15s because it's in good range band and I don't have any cover. So it's extremely dicey. I'm a little bit favored there. And if I ever win one face-to-face roll, it just ends because there's smoke now, and Thrasymedes can't see through Eclipse smoke because, nothing can. So all I was doing was like throwing my smoke grenades on myself, so that, it not only it blocks like this whole corridor if they were to go down. Thrasymedes obviously wouldn't be able to do anything because I'm in smoke. So now it's like, okay, what is this guy gonna do? Even if there was some more orders to play with, he can't go this way and shoot because there's a smoke there. So we have to go down here some more, which is probably going to take him at least in order to move around, to be safe and all that kind of stuff. So that's more order expenditure. And then he doesn't really have any great targets. He can shoot the Galrail sniper, but I'm at, both my wounds still, and I still have the Symbiont. And then he'd likely have to engage at probably a 0 band for an HMG. So it's not the sexiest fight of all time. He's going to be on, I think, 9s. I would probably be also on 9s. Obviously, he has the advantage with burst 4 to burst 2, but it's not the most attractive fight or anything like that. So this really could have gone poorly. I'm not really sure what I would have done here, because if you use the Ecdromo, I'm going to flamethrower it because it can't walk into melee with me, and it has not the best ever odds of passing that arm roll. So you could move it and then try to dodge, which it does have pretty good odds at passing when you consider the arm roll and as well as the physique roll, and then you can back up a little bit more. So I think that would have been maybe the try, is just accept that you got a bad scatter. It happens. Just take this guy, move him back out of the flamer range, and then see what I do. Am I going to dodge closer again? I might. In that case, it's harder. But if I take the flamethrower, then you just dodge, and then from that point on, then you can start shooting and doing things like that. So just a bad position to be in, but I don't think using Thrasymedes to try to bail him out was the way to go, because could have easily gone that Thrasymedes just wastes some orders and I shut him down, and then the Ecdromos doesn't really have anything to do either. So, again, that's just not an ideal situation. I also didn't really like where the Ecdromo with the HMG was trying to go in, so it was in my deployment zone, very close to my lines and things like that, which would have made it, he probably would be in 0 range for an HMG with most of those fights. So I would have liked him to go somewhere, farther away, like maybe, up on this tower where he has like a good sight line or something back here, even maybe like on this building somewhere, where he can, get into some cover, be at a good range band for his gun, stuff like that, and then he can be put into suppressive fire and be a lot more annoying. But none of that stuff really happened, obviously. So McCall ends up dying eventually, and then as a result of using all those orders with Thrasymedes, there's only like one real order left for the Ecdromo, so he either has to go into suppressive fire in the open, which is not very good, or he just has to move into cover but not go into suppressive fire, which is also not very good. So that I guess wasting, if you want to call it that, of orders allow me to kill this guy or the Ecdromo a lot easier than I ordinarily would have. If he'd been suppressive fire, I probably have to use an order to throw a smoke down and then use one of the Galrails to finish him off, because that's going to impose some pretty severe penalties on him. He would be, like -9 overall, so on 3s is going to be really, really bad. I'd be on 9s shooting back, but with a little bit of a burst advantage if I use the Spitfire, or I can use a template weapon or something like that in tandem with something else to try to get him out of suppressive fire. Just, making me work a little bit harder for it. But as it was a pretty easy kill where I just moved the Corral up. I think I lost the first face-to-face roll, burned the Symbiont mate, and then have another go at it, and then I managed to finally drop him. Yeah, and this is just me killing the other Ecdromo with the Rassail. A little bit lucky there because managed to get a crit on a 9, but 3 dice on 9s versus 1 dodge on, I think they're physique 12. Not a good fight, to be sure. I was mostly just trying to either kill the Ecdromo or push him back. So he's basically starting like, over here or something. So if he keeps dodging, he's just getting farther and farther away. Remember, that guy only has a chain rifle. So, worst case scenario, I pump a couple orders into this Rassail. I don't manage to get him, but he's really far away now. So then I just return the Rassail to starting position, put him into suppressive fire, and then I can just use some other models to kind of watch the approach in case the Ecdromo does start coming along. So like I can use this guy in like this position. I can flash pulse really easily. I can position the Rassail so that he gets to shoot as he's coming in. Just stuff like that where that Ecdromo would either have to eat a significant amount of orders, moving through some like weird path around the building and all that kind of stuff, which would take forever, or he's gonna have to walk into some fire and dodge as he goes, which is also going to slow him down. So fortunate that I killed that guy, but if he lived, it's not really the end of the world or anything like that. Kill the designated target because nothing is watching it, so that's definitely something that could have been done as well. With one order, Alki's team could have come out a little bit, to like these positions, to here, to here, stuff like that. Just a couple, like 1 or 2 orders can get you into those places really easily. And then, he could at least, like I said, in the Nomads game, you're not going to keep the designated target safe, but you can probably kill this guy in exchange for getting it. And that removes an order from my group, and it's just one less thing you have to do during your active turn. So that's something that I think both opponents that I played in Decapitation made a mistake on, is that they, first of all, I was able to get to the designated target for free, which is not ideal. But if that does happen to you, you at least want to get something in return for the designated target. Get one or 2 orders stripped out of their pool, depending on what's, their data tracker and all that kind of stuff. And, just get some models dead that you don't have to then worry about during your active turn. But neither of my opponents was in a position to really pull that off. Just to setting up defensive stuff again. Yeah, so now I pull this Krail back to here. He's still alive, but he's close enough so that when Alki and all of her friends come out, they're going to have to deal with him, which is more orders used. And then as we can, see when that eventually happened, I managed to crit a smoke dodge. So not only did they use orders coming out to fight him, but then those orders were, wasted because they can't engage him anymore because he's in a smoke cloud. And then, what ended up ultimately happening is I was able to use the Corral as well as a Chaxa that's down here to kill Alki, which wouldn't have happened as easily or probably not at all if the Corral is dead, because then you can just dodge here instead of splitting burst or whatever in suppressive fire. So that you can see how that kind of everything snowballs, is that, because the Corral got to live when it killed the designated target, Alki and friends wasted orders on Tim's turn trying to kill him. Unluckily, didn't manage to. And then because that happened, I was able to do that coordinated order where I flamethrower and shoot Alki, which puts her in a really, really bad position. That's a really strong way to deal with suppressive fire, is use a template and use somebody shooting at them. And then that ultimately got me a lieutenant kill, which in this scenario is worth a ton of points. So that's kind of just my illustration of how that happened like that. The other weird thing that happened in this, which I mentioned during the battle report, is that the cautious move that happened to avoid my camo token that's like way over here or something. like I said, I'm going to chalk that up to game knowledge. I had used in a regular order multiple times on that camo token, so that should definitely tell you if you're paying attention to the game that it has to be a Liberto, especially in Toha. We don't have any other regular troops that are in camo state. We only have one other camo state model, unless you are doing tricks with the Calypsos. So just doing that, I didn't think was a good idea. Even if you're not sure what it is, you know, most camo tokens, especially forward ones, are models that have, you know, chain rifles, shotguns, combis, SMGs, stuff like that, more short range guns. So I was pretty far away, probably like 16 inches or so. So you just take the ARO. You know, obviously Alki is your lieutenant, so you're a little wary of losing her in this mission and in general, but you know, she has a Spitfire, so even though she's not in cover, she's going to be putting out 5 dice. I don't get surprise attack bonus or anything like that. Obviously, you might be dealing with camo, although the Liberto doesn't get mimetism when it reveals. So this is just a fight you should be prepared to take. And then worst case scenario, you do have a paramedic in the link team, so you can go ahead and try to get her, you know, picked up and all that kind of stuff. So just using that order on the cautious move was, again, kind of a wasted order, partially to game knowledge, partially to, I guess, you know, a little bit of fear or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, we're just going along here. Hucky goes into suppressive fire. So again, and this isn't like a huge mistake or anything. So she goes into suppressive fire, which breaks her out of the link team. Not the worst thing to do because she kind of needs to defend herself, but I think how Tim went about it is the incorrect way. Not only did he have no command tokens at this point, so now these guys can never be rejoined together or anything like that, which is a big deal because you know, just losing that fire team like that is really bad. But I think the way to protect Alki is just to say, hey, you know what? We tried to kill that Corel Preceptor. It didn't work out. Let's just get her back to safety there. Because then I would have to do a lot more walking and things like that to get to her. And you're making me use more orders. So that's something that I think is non-intuitive in Infinity, especially if you come from other miniature games, because a lot of miniature games are about taking and holding ground. I think that's one of the more across the board concepts for like all the Warhammer versions, Ninth Age, you know, a lot of games like that. Whereas Infinity, territory doesn't really matter unless you're playing like quadrant control or something like that, you know, armory. What you normally want to be doing, if you don't have to stick in a specific area, is you want to come out, get specific things done with those models that you brought out, you know, maybe kill some other models, maybe flip a console, get a classified done, whatever, and then you want to pull them back into a safe position. Doesn't have to be a safe position where they can't be seen. It's just a position that's harder for your opponent to see them in, because the active player is always at an advantage unless they're making mistakes. Infinity does a great job of giving you, you know, a chance to do something during your reactive turn, but by and large, you should be getting worked over most of the time when it's your opponent's active turn and they get to pick all these fights and everything. So if you instead make them even use a couple orders on just moving so that they can see stuff before they shoot it and things like that, you are ultimately denying them from doing as much as they possibly can. And that's a prime example of this is, you know, even if Alki and her fire team pull back to behind the building again, I still have the Corel and I still have the Chaxa. So the models that I use to kill her are still in effect, but I'm going to have to use like, you know, one order is going to get me here with the Corel, then I'm going to get here, then I'm going to be able to poke out, and then the Chaxa probably is going to need even more orders to get over there. So it goes from being something that I spend one order and one command token on to maybe being like my entire turn to get a chance at that, which I would still go for because I need to kill a lieutenant in the mission, but I'm getting less chances at it because I'm burning more orders and things like that, and it's just a lot more beneficial for my opponent. And since that didn't happen, things were just so much easier on me than they really needed to be. So you can see I bring everything forward. Alki dies, like we were talking about. Come around here, kill the bot. So by this point, I mean, the game is already lost. You know, Tim has a combination of making some really poor decisions on what fights to take and deployment and things like that have now caught up with him on you know, pretty much on turn 2 and 3, where on, you know, turn 2 he wasn't able to get very much done and still had a lot of things that he needed to get done, and then on my turn 3, I was just able to devastate his army, like, just take out the rest of everything. So, not only does Alki die, which is getting me a huge scenario boost, but I get to kill 2 more orders in the Netrod and the Evobot. Thrasmides, of course, dies. The other Thorikite dies. So I'm able to kill all these things, which is going to make it so that the last turn of the game is a very relaxing experience for me, where I know that nothing bad can happen in my army in terms of the mission, and everything just works out like that. So like I said, definitely some similarities between the 2 games that I played, and I think that's something that a lot of people who are newer to Infinity, newer to miniatures games, play more casually, things like that. It's difficult to identify where these games are going wrong. So that's why I'm breaking it down like this, is because I am a crazy person that spends way too much time thinking about this game and researching it and things like that. So I'm able to kind of cheat ahead of the curve a little bit as far as like my game knowledge and stuff. But if you're, most people that just play this as like, a fun hobby and things like that, it takes a lot longer to notice these types of mistakes, because in the moment they're almost invisible. You're just like, okay, I have to get this one thing done, and I'm just going to do that no matter what. And so like in Tim's case, it was removing those Chaxa for whatever reason. I don't know the reason that he needed to kill those, but in his mind, he did need to kill them. So as he's doing that, all he sees is that he's accomplishing his objective. It doesn't matter that his objective is not, correct in the first place, possibly, or that it's taking a lot of orders to do so and things like that. Hey, knock it off, you. Hey, sorry about that. Hey, knock it off. It just matters that that he's doing the things that he wants to do, and he did manage to get all those things done, but as the game went along, those, invisible mistakes, or whatever you want to call them, snowballed harder and harder, which eventually led to, just a complete victory for me. So if you're newer to Infinity, if you're trying to get into the more competitive side of the game, something like that, definitely think about not only what you want to do every turn, but how you are going to do it. What is it going to cost you? How likely are you to succeed versus taking something else? A lot of the time, your opponent might bait you with some big prize or something like that, but it's going to take you your whole turn to achieve that prize, and that's exactly what they wanted. Whereas maybe you could have done some other smaller things, and, your cumulative accomplishments are more than just that one big obvious prize. And it just takes a lot of games and a lot of time with the game to kind of recognize that and be able to, either exploit those opportunities or not fall into traps and things like that. So that's my biggest takeaway from this game, and the breakdown. Hopefully that was of some use for you guys as well. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.